Liza's Secret Storm, Part 1. The Anchor. Liza Santos lived her life in books, the kind that smelled of ink and exhaustion, stacked in uneven towers across the floor of her apartment. Her last year of law school was supposed to be the final sprint, but more often it felt like drowning in a tide of case law and deadlines. Her laptop hummed late into the night, pages of notes glowing in pale blue light, while coffee cups gathered like ghosts beside her bed. And yet, through the blur of exhaustion, there was Daniel. Daniel, who had never studied law in his life but listened as though every word she spoke was treasure. Daniel, who leaned into her silences until she laughed. Daniel, whose hand always found hers in the most ordinary moments, waiting for the bus, walking out of the library, standing in the grocery store, and made the world feel, for an instant, soft. They had met during her second year, when she had been too busy to fall in love, but love had a way of slipping in anyway. What struck her most wasn't his looks, though she admired the storm-blue eyes and the unruly hair he never quite tamed. It was his attentiveness, the way he remembered how she liked her coffee, or the way he'd sit with her for hours in the library, headphones in, body angled toward hers as though keeping watch. There were nights when exhaustion claimed her, and she'd lay her head in his lap on the sofa, pretending to read while drifting in and out of sleep. He would stroke her hair, slow and steady, and she would dream of oceans and calm. But there were other nights, when calm turned into something else. They would stand in her kitchen with the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence, music playing faintly from her phone. One song would lead to another, and soon he would draw her close, his palm pressing lightly against the small of her back. They would sway without thinking, forehead to forehead, and the kiss would come slowly, inevitably. Those kisses were her refuge, tender at first, then deepening, lingering. Sometimes they kissed until her knees trembled and she clung to him just to keep steady. It was never hurried. He kissed her as if time existed only for them, as if the world outside could wait. In those moments, she believed she could endure anything. The exhaustion, the doubt, the endless weight of the future, it all melted when he whispered, "You've got this, Liz," or when his thumb brushed her jawline as if she were the most precious thing he had ever touched. To love Daniel was to find both fire and safety, and yet in the back of her mind, there was always a question she dared not form into words. Safety could never last forever. Part 2. Cracks in the Mirror. The first time she noticed something odd, it was so small she almost laughed at herself for caring. Daniel had been scrolling through his phone while she highlighted another paragraph on corporate liability. A faint smile crossed his face. Soft, private. "Who's that?" she asked lightly, pointing to the notification she'd glimpsed. "Just Emma," he said. Her best friend. Emma, who had been her study partner since the first year, who knew her coffee order, her exam fears, her messy heart. Emma, who could make her laugh so hard in the library that the librarian threatened to throw them out. Liza felt no jealousy. Why would she? Emma was like her sister. But then she remembered the slight hesitation before Daniel had said her name, the kind of pause people make when deciding how much truth to tell. She told herself not to be ridiculous. And yet, over the next few weeks, the oddness grew roots. She would catch Daniel watching Emma with a quietness that wasn't quite casual, or Emma's laughter lingering a little too long when he was near. Once, after a study session, she saw Emma adjust her hair quickly in the reflection of the window as Daniel entered the cafe. Small things, almost nothing, and still, something in her chest tightened. She tried to push it aside. She kissed Daniel more fiercely, lingered in his arms longer, as though passion itself could erase her doubts. He kissed her back with tenderness that never faltered. But late at night, while scrolling through her notes, she would remember Emma's hand brushing Daniel's arm, or the way his gaze sometimes drifted when he thought no one was looking. Love was a mirror, she realized. Sometimes the cracks appeared before the shattering. Part 3. The storm breaks. It was a Thursday evening when she decided to surprise him. The library had drained her dry, and she longed for his arms, his smile, his grounding presence. She carried a bag with takeout, imagining his delight when she showed up unannounced. When she reached his apartment, the door was slightly ajar. Odd. But Daniel was careless sometimes, she thought with a fond smile, and she nudged it open. Her smile died. Inside, the world shifted. Daniel was not alone. Her best friend was with him, Emma. They were pressed together, bodies curved in desperate harmony, mouths devouring each other as though the world beyond the apartment did not exist. Daniel's hand cupped Emma's face with a gentleness Liza had once thought belonged only to her. Emma clung to him, fingers tangled in his hair, gasps muffled against his lips. The bag of takeout slipped from Liza's hand. She froze in the doorway, unseen, her pulse hammering so violently she thought she might faint. Her first instinct was rage. A scream built in her chest, sharp as glass. She wanted to burst into the room, to tear them apart, to demand why, how, when. Her vision blurred with hot tears. But then something stranger happened. She didn't move. She didn't scream. She stayed in the shadows, heartbreaking, and yet watching. It should have destroyed her. It did. And yet she could not look away. Every kiss they shared, every tremor in Emma's voice, every shudder of Daniel's shoulders, it pierced her. But it also lit a strange fire in her blood. Anger tangled with fascination, grief with hunger. She imagined herself as Emma, felt the brush of his hands on her skin. She imagined herself as Daniel, tasting Emma's breath. Her mind betrayed her, weaving her into both of them until she was everywhere in the scene and nowhere at all. The line between pain and desire blurred, terrifying and undeniable. Her breath came fast, shallow. A strange dizziness overcame her as though she were falling and flying at once. When at last it ended, she slipped away silently, unnoticed. The storm had broken. Nothing would be the same. Part 4. Aftermath and Awakening. That night, her bed felt like a battlefield. At first, the memory burned like acid. She lay curled under the sheets, sobs tearing from her throat, her chest aching with betrayal. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw them again, entwined, kissing with a hunger she had thought was hers alone. She wanted to hate them both, to erase them, to erase herself. But then, slowly, dangerously, the memory shifted. Her mind replayed Daniel's hands on Emma's waist, the fervor in his kiss. And suddenly it was Liza's waist, Liza's lips, Liza's breath catching. She twisted in the sheets, restless, her skin alive with heat she didn't understand. By dawn, she had stopped crying. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her body humming with an energy she had never felt before. It frightened her. It thrilled her. In lectures the next day, she couldn't concentrate. The professor's voice blurred into meaningless sound. All she saw was the image of them together. All she felt was the confusing rush in her veins, jealousy and desire, grief and longing. What did it mean to be both broken and aroused by betrayal? To despise the vision and crave it at the same time? At night, dreams claimed her. Dreams where Daniel kissed her as he had kissed Emma, where Emma's laughter mingled with her own. Dreams that left her trembling, ashamed, yet strangely alive. She realized for the first time that love was not only sweetness and loyalty, it was also chaos. It was wild, messy, unexplainable. And in that forbidden vision, she had glimpsed a part of herself she had never dared to know. Part 5. The Reckoning. Days passed, heavy with silence. Daniel texted her, called her, left voicemails full of casual affection. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Emma sent a message too, light and ordinary, as if nothing had happened. Liza wanted to confront them, to scream the truth. But when she pictured the words leaving her mouth, they dissolved before they reached the air. Instead, she turned inward. She filled pages of her journal with rage, then fascination, then confusion. She wrote of betrayal, but also of awakening. She wrote of longing that frightened her, fantasies that defied her. One evening, she walked along the river alone, the wind sharp against her skin. She watched the water move, restless, endless, and understood. She was no longer the same Liza who had believed love was safe and simple. She had stepped into something darker, more complex. She could not undo what she had seen. She could not unfeel what it had awakened. Perhaps she would never forgive them. Perhaps she would confront them tomorrow. Perhaps she would walk away entirely. But tonight she stood on the edge of her own transformation, carrying both the wound and the fire it had sparked. The storm had broken her open, and in its aftermath, she had discovered herself.